What is good? It's late and I'm tired, but we're about to catch you a little couple minutes on some reaction on the first round. Obviously, first pick, Cam Ward to your Tennessee Titans. I think it's,
two-time Ward, baby.
The most expected pick of the draft, right?
Yeah. Minus 50,000, I think, is what it ended up at.
Yeah.
That's just
pretty expected. So I think we all kind of knew what that was. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on that reacting right this minute, right? Unless you have anything that you really want to expand upon here, right?
No, there's a time and a place for it. And I have a whole podcast where I'll talk about, what it actually means. But now is not the time for that.
You get, you signed Tyler Lockett before the draft, so that's cool, I guess.
Yep. Super not really don't care about that.
Yeah. Got him locked in, though. Nice veteran presence for Ward, though. All right. Then we had a big trade. Cleveland trades back as far as a football move. I think it's a great move by the Browns. Hunter goes to Jacksonville. I don't think we really answered any questions of kind of where and what Hunter's role is going to be. But he did dodge a huge bullet. Florida boy staying in Florida, not going to Cleveland. So I think that was a huge win for him. But initial takeaways there?
Massive W. I mean, this kind of, if he's going to moonlight as a receiver, this is a perfect place to do it because you've got Brian Thomas commanding coverage. You've got Britton Strange in the middle of the field. You can design packages and use Travis Hunter as an ultimate weapon gadget guy. And I think that's where, his fantasy value can have the most stable outside of just having a full-time role as a receiver. So I was excited about the landing spot. Obviously, I'm not excited about having to play him twice a year as a Titans fan, but yeah, from a fantasy perspective, this is great because he's not going to draw coverage and he's not going to get a ton of attention.
Yeah, it feels like a pretty big statement move by the new regime of Jacksonville, right?
Yeah, Ellen DeGeneres, a GM, did his thing.
They went up and got a guy, and a very interesting guy. At the very least, will sell tickets. You give your first round pickup next year, right?
Right.
That was a kind of a big deal. So I'm assuming Jacksonville thinks that they could be semi-competitive, and you're not giving up a top 4 pick here. Top 5 pick or whatever. So that part of it was certainly interesting. We'll see kind of where Jacksonville ends up in these next couple of picks. They're kind of void in the pass catching area, right? So Hunter certainly can have a decent role there. But we've talked a bunch about Hunter. We're going to talk a bunch more about Hunter. We're not here tonight right now to really get into the Hunter semantics. So we can shelf that for now. And then I think the next pick was probably also the chalkiest one. The rest of it, I feel like the rest of these picks were kind of like, I don't hate them, but I don't love them right now. I shouldn't say all that, but there was a couple of them in there that threw some monkey wrenches in some plans. But this one was pretty well cut and dry. We felt like it felt so chalky that it felt like it couldn't even be the pick. So right. Jeanty to the Raiders. My initial quick thought is it's not my favorite. Offensive line wise, we're not completely situated. It fits the brand of what both guys who are running the show and offensively kind of want to do. Chip likes to run the ball. Pete wants to establish it. You have Geno, you have a stopgap in place. You have Brock. Now you're adding Jeanty to that, slowly adding little cornerstone pieces as you go along here. The good news is it didn't add any real cost to the 101. As a matter of fact, maybe some people are a little less inclined to the 101. Jeanty's still a really good player, so I'm still fine with it. But if he would have went to the Bears or maybe another landing spot there, it would have gotten really out of control what the 101 would have been worth. So kind of good if you want to get in the Jeanty sweepstakes, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it goes from being, him having the absolute best landing spot known to man or in a just a net positive offensive ecosystem to, hey, man, we really don't know what the Raiders are going to look like offensively. So that uncertainty probably gives you an opportunity to you're going to have to overpay, but you have a chance to get the 101 still. And it's still Ashton Jeanty. It's not Cam Ward. It's not Omarion Hampton, who we'll talk about shortly. It's Ashton Jeanty, solidified, no questions asked.
Yeah, capital's there. I think the talent's there. I don't think the Raiders are god awful for landing spot wise. It's fine. Could have been more fun in the Bear situation, but opportunity cost might have went up. So Jeanty going to the Raiders felt pretty chalky. This next one I felt like was kind of out of the blue. Terairoa McMillan came in with Carolina there. I wouldn't say it was crazy out of the blue, but Ted had just been kind of doo-dooed on this whole process, especially late, and that he, late first round, maybe not in the first round at all, or at least getting pushed way down. And Carolina comes up and gets a guy here who can go out there and give them something that they needed, right? I don't think that anybody came in here thinking Tet was some sort of Marvin Harrison or Neighbors of any sort, but I think he's a very good player, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a really good player. I mean, you wondered what it would look like potentially if Drake London or T. Higgins went to a landing spot and got to be an alpha, and that's what we have with right now with Terairoa McMillan potentially. I mean, you can't definitively say that he's going to be. So I pulled up the Carolina receiving stats from 2024, and Xavier Legette led with 81 targets. So there's just a vacuum that he walks into day one, and he's the best receiver that they have, and he's going to probably be Bryce Young's favorite target. So you're walking into a situation that's optimal for a rookie to just become a target vacuum. And so that probably moved Tet up my board a little bit, just big guy, great landing spot, solidified quarterback play. I don't know what people believe about Bryce, but I'm 100% in on the landing spot plus the type of player that he is.
I think it's just another good player to pair with Bryce. Gives him a big target on the outside to kind of go to lean on at times, maybe when things aren't perfect. If Bryce can pick up where he left off, I think this is a great landing spot for Tet to get a decent amount of volume his way. We'll see where Legette kind of lands in that pecking order. They think highly of him, but they just added another guy, which I think they needed to. They need to give Bryce all of the chances.
A fair shot.
Right, yeah. Right. And that kind of gives you this. Thielen can give you another run. Coker, we'll see kind of what he can do. Had some ups and downs, but a lot of people really like what they saw from Coker. You got JT Sanders, we have Chuba, so we'll see how the rest of this Carolina draft shakes out. But I like the ad there from Carolina and for Bryce overall. So I agree with you. I think Bryce can kind of pick it up where he left off. All right, next one, big surprise here. Bears taking Colston Loveland, I think, over Tyler Warren for a lot of people. And then just in general, this wasn't a spot where I was super stoked for Tyler Warren to go either. Not because, I don't think Ben Johnson can draw it up. I don't think Caleb Williams can facilitate. It's just now it's getting crowded, right?
We go from hoping that we're going to get clarity on DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and Cole Kmet and how that target tree shakes out to now we're talking about a rookie getting top 10 draft capital, and where does he fit in the offense? Is he going to out target Rome Odunze? I don't think so. But now that's another question. So, I mean, you might have created a value window for Rome to still be able to acquire Rome on the cheap, because I think he's going to break out in a big way. I think Colston Loveland is, obviously he's going to be a big part of their plans, but what that looks like in 2025 remains to be seen. So now we've just created more questions in what we believe is going to be a really positive offensive environment. But I need time to process that one, because I did not see that coming. Yeah.
I think, the next couple of picks are kind of not exactly what we wanted for landing spots, although what this does for, and this is a good landing spot for Loveland. It's just, we have to figure out how this pecking order is going to work out, who's going to be where, and it muddies it up a little bit. It's good for Caleb. It's good for this offense. As long as Caleb can come in and be Jared Goff-esque, then I think all these guys can eat. It's just, it may not be quite as productive as maybe we thought the Rome. it may not be quite as easy for the Rome step up or the DJ Moore just target hog. I mean, you just spent the 10th overall pick on Loveland, man. Like, you're going to find ways to get him involved. Does it mean there's more 12 with some Komet out there? They can get out of Komet, I think, in a year. That's what we kind of looked up and saw that.
After this year, 3.2 dead cap hit to move on after this season.
Right. But Ben, we think, can he be a head coach? We don't know. Can he draw up an offense? For sure. Overall, this is a good spot. I think it really moves the needle on the value for Loveland, especially in tight end premium drafts, that the gap is now closed between him and Warren, I think, in a lot of situations. So push these other guys down in your draft. And this is kind of, this is what we're figuring out right now, processing of who slots where, right? Golden wasn't as high as he went, but he gets the landing spot that we didn't really see. And we'll have to touch on him. So maybe that made him more attractive to some people, or less attractive because maybe the capital wasn't quite as high, but it's still first round. So I don't know how much it matters to everyone, but Loveland gets top 10 capital. Warren goes to the spot that we didn't want tight ends to go to, and it just kind of lined up perfectly. And we're all sitting there going, no. But again, man, in a year or two, we could be looking around and be like, man, these were all great picks. And we're talking about Loveland, Warren, Egbuka. Right now, it looks a little weird of how it's going to all play out. But in a year or two, you trust the talent, and you see where the value is going to lie, and you say you have to question yourself of whether you're okay with buying into that where the value lies, or if you're going to say, I'm out on where that ended up kind of settling in at. So these are the questions that we're going to have to answer over the next couple of weeks. And that's, some of this stuff takes time of figuring out where that is. But Warren going to the Colts, immediate reaction is just bummer.
I wish that it weren't true. That's my initial reaction. But like you said, I mean, we've played enough Dynasty at this point to say, hey, man, I may not love this landing spot, but I've done the work to say, hey, I think that Tyler Warren is a superior talent, and he's eventually going to be a really, really good, meaningful tight end for my Dynasty team. And so if that's the way you feel, have patience. Know that it's a suboptimal environment right now, but in 2026, as soon as 2026, things could completely change around, and you're looking at a bona fide top 3 asset at the tight end position. He could be in that same tier with Trey McBride and Brock Bowers. Who knows? Right. But I mean, depending on how you view him or what he puts on film as a pro. So it's not what we wanted, but we could be, again, if you really like Tyler Warren, this creating a buy window, because there's going to be a drop because the landing spot sucks. He doesn't have a quarterback, all the negative things you can think of. So just if you feel great about Tyler Warren, still feel great about him, but just know we're playing a long game here.
Yeah, no, that I echo those sentiments, and it's good for Anthony Richardson, I think, to add one more target to there. But can we get a quarterback that can facilitate all these? We're not sure. So that's what we're a little bummed about. That you have an ecosystem that could be awesome, but it also could turn into something that's a little worrisome week after week of who you're starting and how you're starting them. So Warren could be a pick that you might have to wait on. All right, that brings us right to Egbuka. Super interesting here, right?
Bud.
It went Egbuka to the Bucks.
We all had the same reaction, like, bro, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, how does this happen? How is this on nobody's radar? I mean, all the mock drafts we've done, all the mock drafts we've discussed, and nobody ever once was like, yeah, Emeka Egbuka to the Bucks.
Right.
No one. So that's another one that I've really got to process, because I want to think that this is going to be positive because he's in a great environment. But again, we may not be looking at a 2025 breakout for Emeka Egbuka.
Right.
It may not fully happen until 2026. He could be on the Chris Godwin plan for all we know, and just fully break out in his third year, the first time he gets a full complement of snaps. Now, Mike Evans he's done after this year. right? Like his contract only has a void year on it. So I think that, if Mike Evans has told the team I plan to retire after this year or whatever, and I'm going to retire a buck, not really play around with it, then this makes a lot more sense. And again, we have to remind ourselves, JSN, now Roma Dunze, now Emeka Egbuka. Talent, not the most ideal situation for them to produce for your fantasy team, but talent. Like, we're not going to fade the talent.
Exactly. So, this goes to the same spiel I just went on a minute ago. It sucks. It sucks right now especially for what you were planning on Egbuka to be for you this year somewhere. It's probably not going to be that. Now, injuries happen. Godwin injury happened, and long term could be great for the Bucks. Bucks are investing in offense, great for Baker. Regardless of what happens, they've got 4 wide receivers that they can deploy in a bunch of different ways, right? This just was a situation where you just didn't see it panning out this way. It hurts your McMillan stock, but these are the times that you buy a little McMillan stock, right? Because everybody's going to be bummed about it. So you go in and you buy that. You just signed Godwin long term. I don't know how that plays out. We don't know how healthy he is. Maybe he's not quite right, but they signed him. So, and they're in that building, so they should probably already know that. Like you said, maybe Evans is out after this year, and this is just they're playing the long game, and they're playing the Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins kind of game here. And we just, next year we could be praising this, but like, oh, look at the forethought in this. They don't miss a beat now. They've had this great receiving core after bringing in Godwin, and now it's Egbuka, McMillan, Godwin for a year, and then they let Godwin ride off into the sunset, and it's Egbuka and McMillan just taking this offense for the next 7-8 years, right?
Right.
So patience is what we're going to have to preach here. But again, probably just bumped Egbuka back a little bit in your startup drafts, right? So I think I'm okay with taking that value bump and just being patient if you can afford to have that luxury. So rebuilders or contenders, I don't mind either way. Right.
I mean, we'll talk about a few guys, and I'm going to pose a couple questions as far as like what ADP wise, what we would do from a process standpoint.
Yeah,
we can. Yeah, it could be cool, but again, remember JSN, Roma Dunze. This is the same type of scenario where it's not going to probably come to fruition in year one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. All right, so we got Omarion Hampton going to this one was quite a bit of what we were expecting, or at least a lot of mocks projected. It's a hand in glove kind of fits schematically and stylistically with what Roman and Harbs want to do. Omarion Hampton to the Chargers just kind of solidifies everybody who loved Hampton and puts the Hampton value and the 1-2 value probably in pretty good hands kind of moving forward. What was your initial reaction to Hampton?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that it actually happened because I'm not sure, but I mean, have we ever seen a Jim Harbaugh team take a skill position in the first round like that? Going back to the days in San Francisco?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, we could look it up, but I feel like that's just this solidifies the 1-2. I think Zach said it's written in pen. I mean, it's written in Sharpie now. This is the nuts of a landing spot in terms of, hey, stylistic fit. You hit it on the head. Stylistic fit, need, opportunity. I think all of that fits Omarion Hampton and the Los Angeles Chargers perfectly. And they ran the ball 463 times last year. So there's plenty to go around if they want to run it with Najee, which you could just give it to Omarion Hampton and profit.
Yeah. No, again, it could be a little bit of a weird first year for Omarion Hampton. The Najee and him battle back and forth game to game, starting who and what. I mean, I think some people that are bullish on Hampton are just going to say, of course, Hampton's just going to take the job. But I mean, I don't know that Jim's going to feel that way. It feels like Jim is probably going to be like, hey, we're going to use Najee and we're going to use Hampton. And we're going to be able to just have these battering rams that are interchangeable. And just be relentless in that effort of being able to just hammer you down in, down out. And then, oh, by the way, we have Ladd, and we'll see if they add something else through the rest of this draft. So I think people feel probably pretty good about Omarion Hampton. Just, I think there could be some caution of maybe he's doesn't quite put up the crazy numbers you thought might happen in year one. I know there's a lot of Najee haters out there, but Najee's still a pretty good NFL caliber running back, although obviously not the home run hitter that Hampton is.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, 460 carries, we're going to figure out a distribution. We're going to figure out a distribution of those carries that probably benefits both of them a little bit more than we would like, but it's definitely going to be a positive landing zone for Omarion Hampton, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, and I think that's just kind of what we took away. I think even though we're not sure about how Loveland's ecosystem is going to work out, and Warren, again, Egbuka, all these guys we just talked about, I think eventually we're going to be fine and they're going to be what we wanted. Hampton might be the only one that doesn't come. I mean, Loveland as well, but Warren might have a little discount. Egbuka might have a discount. And I don't know that Hampton's going to have a discount, but there might be some people who eventually get a little disappointed with what they got out of Hampton year one and start asking questions. But those are the guys that are impatient in general. So, all right, Matthew Golden to the Packers. Never happened. Who'd you say the last Packer? Javon Walker. Yeah. 2002. So really threw a wrench in a lot of plans. We were kind of talking about it whilst watching together. Golden goes here. Maybe gives them kind of everything they wanted that they wanted with Christian Watson out of Golden, like right off the rip. Can he stay healthy?
I hope so. They had to do something, and I thought it was going to be on day two, because you've got Christian Watson's contract expiring after this year. Romeo Dobbs' contract is expiring after this year. Bo Melton's contract, I believe, is expiring after this year. Dontavian Wicks has some more time. But you've got Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and now Matthew Golden that are probably firmly a part of the team's plans beyond 2025. So the question I was going to ask you is, now in rookie drafts, are you taking Emeka Egbuka, or are you going to take Matthew Golden?
That is a question that I haven't even thought about, my friend.
I've been thinking about it since they took Matthew Golden. Well, first Egbuka comes off the board, and then Matthew Golden goes off 4 picks later. And I immediately started thinking, okay, so the 1-8 now, what do we do with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the right, to play to the crowd of today, it's Golden is the right answer. And then pick up Egbuka later, which is like the laziest answer maybe ever. But that's probably the reality of it. And you can probably play it that way. I don't know, but I guess
that's a tough instant reaction question, because it requires a lot of processing. And that was what I was trying to figure out, if I needed to speed up my thought process in terms of, okay, well, just trust what your evaluation told you beforehand. And right. I was higher on Egbuka than I was Matthew Golden. So, but also there's a vacuum of targets. There's way more seemingly opportunity to present itself with Matthew Golden than there is with Egbuka, at least on the front end. So I thought that was an interesting question that I wanted to ask there.
Yeah. What it comes down to me is, did Green Bay get a quote unquote wide receiver one? I'm not sure of that answer. I wasn't one that had Golden way up there. I had Golden behind Egbuka as well. I'm not sure that he's going to be that crazy number one target monster answer. Could be completely wrong. But he almost would have to score more fantasy points than Egbuka this year, which is Dynasty. So that's not the right answer necessarily, right?
See, it's a conundrum for sure.
It is. It really is, and it's something that we'll I'm sure discuss ad nauseum kind of moving forward, and it's going to be a big discussion point for a lot of shows. But for the sake of our sleepiness, let's move on to the last pick, and we'll have plenty of time this weekend to discuss more about that. All right, so the Giants trade back in, get Jaxson Dart here. I think for the Giants and what they achieved, day one could not have gone better, right? This is what you want. You get to have such a good press conference. We got, when's the last time the Giants were good? When that D line was lights the fuck out, right? And I'm not saying that's where they are. I'm not saying those guys are Tuck and Umanura and Strahan. Obviously, those are giant. But I'm just saying that was the last time that we had like this ridiculous Giants team. And now you kind of pseudo could put that together a little bit with Burns and Thibodeau. And now you have Abdul Carter to that mix. And you have
Kayvon. You got Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau.
Dexter Lawrence. That was who I missed. Yeah.
You got,
Brian
we
Burns.
talked about this on the show with Cody. You make a strength a strength, and then they go in and they've seemingly solidified, at least given themselves an opportunity to solidify the quarterback situation with Jaxson Dart. Now, the question becomes, does Jaxson Dart end up winning the job out of camp? Does he just beat out Russell Wilson outright? Or is it succession plan like 6 weeks? Is it more along the lines of Drake May? Is it just that he kind of sits this year and develops, in which case he's going to be playing for another coaching staff? But it also reminds me a lot of when the Raiders went and took Khalil Mack and then came back and got Derek Carr.
Yeah.
So that's what, that would be an optimal outcome for them. But I don't know, I've never been super sure about Jaxson Dart, but now that he has the capital, we can go ahead and start to, we can spend up a little bit.
Yeah. One more slot in the first round probably just got facilitated by Jaxson Dart here, and maybe Shedeur slid out of it at this point. Tomorrow opens up and maybe Cleveland takes Shedeur first pick. Maybe it's New Orleans. I don't know where Shedeur lands at this point, but it would seem as of now that Jaxson Dart has supplanted Shedeur for most people. I would say myself included right this minute. You'd have to think that the Giants aren't a terrible landing spot for Dart. Like you said, I don't know that he comes in right away and starts. I think probably Russ gets the nod here for a minute, but we'll see. But it felt like Dayball and Dart were a pretty good match of more of the things that Dayball might want. Overall, we had some sliding around of your tiles in the first round a little bit, but I don't think it was the worst. I think we'll come to grips with some things. It'll be interesting to see how this second and third round kind of play out. Or, how do these top teams kind of jockey for the next big skill position players that come off the board? So if Shedeur becomes a Brown first pick tomorrow, do you have a big gap between him and Dart or no?
Oh, not huge. I just think they flip-flop ADP spots, and now Shedeur might be in the back end of that first round, maybe early second round at the latest, and then Dart's pushed up into the back end of the first round.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because last year we had Penix and Nix and all those guys, but they all got the capital, and those guys were pushed down to the 112, 2-1, 2-2 area. Now Dart still gets the capital, but not top 10. And then Shedeur is now out of the first round. So going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. There's plenty of people who were in on Shedeur and plenty of people who were Shedeur haters. So, that's going to still be quite the push and pull to see where Shedeur kind of lands in super flex drafts and in the NFL draft. Anything else you want to comment on before we get out of here?
No, man, that's just, this was enough shocks, enough. Now, like, we're about to have fun over these next couple of days. So I'm looking forward to it quite a bit. Yeah.
Same, man. Well, appreciate you hanging in there with me. Get this out for tomorrow morning. Some quick reactions for your pleasure. We're going to have a lot more time to digest all this stuff and come up with our takes, but wanted to fight it out through round one to give you guys something to listen to for tomorrow. So Chev, appreciate you. And unfortunately, you probably won't see much of me for the next couple of days, but I'll be back on Sunday. We'll hit you with some rookie mocks and some rankings and all that jazz after this has come to completion. Till next time, peace.